Yeah.
Now, switching over to the cornerback position on the Ravens. Ravens actually re-signed Trayvon Mullen.
Yeah, just now. Yeah.
Shocking move. That's the move that we were expecting.
That's the first one.
Yeah, we got Eric DaCosta is in his bag right now. Trayvon Mullen to the Ravens. But, we have a question mark at Marcus Peters. What do we do? Do we go after Marcus Peters because we know exactly what he can bring? And we can still draft a cornerback if we bring it back Marcus Peters. That doesn't negate that opportunity. But is it worth having Marcus Peters on this defense, on this team? And how much are you guys willing to pay him?
Well, Marcus Peters is tricky because you wonder if, because last year obviously wasn't a good year for Marcus Peters, but you wonder if it's because he was getting older or it's because he was coming off of the injury, or it's a mix of both. I think if you do bring back Marcus Peters, I don't think it's really a rush. But if you do bring back Marcus Peters, I think that could be like an incentive-based deal based off of playing time, maybe based off of picks, based off of some type of incentives where it's not a lot of money guaranteed, anything like that. Of course, you don't want to give him anything disrespectful, but I don't think he should command this crazy high salary from the Baltimore Ravens. Somebody who Josh brought up earlier, who I forget about at the cornerback position, but when he got his opportunity, he looked like really, really good. And that was
Worley.
Yeah. I remember
his moments.
Yeah. In the game, it was the game where Marcus Peters was out, where the Ravens were playing the Bengals. And it was the last game of the season. That's when he looked really good.
Yeah.
And then, we didn't see him after that because Marcus Peters came back for the playoff game the next week. But and not saying that Daryl Worley should replace Marcus Peters, anything like that, but just as another option. And then obviously Trayvon Mullen too. But yeah, as far as Marcus Peters, I don't think you should give him anything crazy. And I would say maybe like a 1-year deal. I feel like it should be sort of like the Jimmy Smith route, where how toward the end of Jimmy Smith's career, they were like 1-year deals, wasn't anything crazy or nothing like that. They did let him test the market. They're like, hey, go ahead, go see what's out there, whatnot. And if you get signed, all right, cool. If not, all right, come on back. We'll bring you back just as a safe, solid option. And when we know what you're capable of, but there's still the injuries that might be a little bit scary. So we're not going to command too much money to you.
Yeah, I definitely feel like, Marcus Peters back on a veteran minimum is going to help this defense a lot. I do feel like, that ACL tear and that recovery definitely hinder a lot of his play. So I feel like a full year of recovery, full year of working out, we'll get that Marcus Peters that we love, jumping the picks, things of that nature. I still do believe that we do draft the corner as well. But you got to think about the guys we do have in camp. Well, in the office room. Pepe Williams, that's my guy. Jalen Armour-Davis, I don't know. He got to take a big step. He has to take a big step to show that he deserves playing time. Brandon Stevens, he's another one that I really like. But he's another one that has to take a big step, especially when him making that transition to cornerback and making it into the league. Just playing 1 year at corner. So big shout out to him still. He's making things happen. And even bringing in Trayvon Mullen, who was a great corner at Clemson. If we can get that Clemson Trayvon Mullen, that would be a big hype for us. So there's so many moves you can make, and we gotta think about it too, y'all. Kyle Fuller, I think he is another guy that's up for contract talk as well. That will also be another good depth piece to that cornerback room as well. So Marcus Peters on the field, he just adds a level of intensity that defense needs.
Yeah,
if we're gonna be the Ravens smash mouth talking type of defense, you're gonna need some dogs along Roquan Smith, because Roquan, he's that. I always say the way he got a vice grip on him, like he used to wrestle pigs growing up, and he don't let them dudes go. But he's not too much of a talker. You need that dog on the outside, to get the team hyped up, like a Marcus Peters. So I feel like especially with Calais gone, don't know if he's going to make a return, but I feel like he's going to be he'll be that vocal leader to that defense, especially that secondary as well.
Yeah, I think the Ravens want at least one person that can frustrate wide receivers, because I think that's such a valuable thing in the NFL, that there's a lot of wide receivers that get upset and like get worse when they are upset. I think the biggest one is DK Metcalf, where like if you're trash talking him and you're good, it's going to get in his head. And I think that happens with a lot of wide receivers. I think that happened in the playoff game with Jamar Chase. I think he got really upset at Marcus Peters. It seemed like he wasn't performing to the level that he, normally does against the Ravens, which is like 250 yards and 8 touchdowns.
It was lovely. It was lovely
so
to see that.
Shout out to that trash talk. But like, if the Ravens are trying to replace him, like, I wonder how their interviews are going, because I think they do really like that mentality that he brings and that aggressiveness. Mm-hmm. I don't think that Jalen Armour-Davis or Pepe Williams, are that type of talker. Mm-hmm. Marlon's like a screamer. Marlon's like a happy screamer. He's not much of a trash talker, but like, I wonder if they just draft someone this year and they just go like, all right, man, we don't care what your mentality is right now. You need to trash talk these guys and go after someone like Cam Smith or, maybe a later round cornerback, a round 3 corner, and just be like, dude, we want you to like get in their face. We want you to, make people upset. If you're struggling on someone, we will put Marlon on them. But we want you, to develop into that guy outside of Marlon Humphrey that is going to frustrate people, because that's the benefit Marlon and Marcus have, is they're like complete opposites. And I remember, back when the Titans were a rival a couple years ago when they were good, A.J. Brown killed us. Marlon Humphrey was trying to cover A.J. Brown, and it was like Marlon couldn't do anything. And then it was like A.J. Brown was like, all right, Marcus, get over there. And it was like, wow, A.J. Brown's not doing anything. Because Marlon was playing him all physical, tight, grabbing, pulling, arm wrestling. And then Marcus Peters was like, all right, I'm going to back off, and we'll see what happens when the ball's in the air. And it worked out really well. Getting that sort of dynamic would be really interesting. And it's hard to find someone like that would fit so seamlessly, because they have to develop into the Ravens' new system. Mm-hmm. Marcus Peters was already developed. He knew how to play. Yeah. And so he's able to come in, kind of adapt and do what, originally I think it was Wink Martindale was the DC when we first brought him in. I think it was after Dean Pease left. So I think, as much as I'm not a huge fan of Marcus Peters, but it's almost like, I don't know if we can replace him in terms of like how much value he brings outside of just his play on the field. It's like, he loves the Ravens.
Yeah.
Maybe we're able to bring him back like we do with so many vets, like we do with Justin Houston and we do with, we've done with Calais before. Maybe just try and get him one more year and draft some. Like, they could draft a first-round corner and re-sign Marcus Peters and be like, all right, Marcus, you got a year left. Be the starter. Because that's what we did with Marlon. We had Jimmy Smith and Brandon Carr.
Oh, Brandon Carr.
And it was like, Brandon Carr is really annoying me because he should not have been starting over Marlon Humphrey that rookie year. But you know what? That's what they did. They had the vet, and they were like, all right, we're going to – and we drafted Marlon at like 16. So the Ravens are going to draft best player available. And if that's a cornerback, they may still have Marcus Peters on the roster. But I think he's a good vet, and he's a good mentor for Pepe and Jalen Armour-Davis and Brandon Stevens. I also wonder if maybe they try him at safety, slide into that Chuck Clark kind of, if they want to throw an over the top safety, because we saw how much Marcus liked to talk to Chuck. Like, hey man, you should have been over there. Why don't you show us? Hey, show us how the safety should play that.
I think it could work since it's like on the back end, and like how you brought up, man, look, it came out of Marcus Peters' mouth that being hit in the Baltimore organization, it brought back his love for the game. When we hear about the contract talks and, the negotiations not going well, but on the flip side, you hear about so many guys that may have lost the love or may, had a bad experience at different organizations, just love it here in Baltimore. So, obviously Baltimore does do something good, especially for these veterans, So, shout out to them on that part. So I definitely see them possibly working out that deal with Marcus, maybe even Kyle Fuller too for the depth. And as long as you're not trading away no more people. Remember when we had all the corners that year and we got the trading away, for picks,
Shout out to Sean Wade.
And then it backfired on us, I mean,
yeah.
But it's like Ravens have it's something that's going on there with their cornerback room. Because last year, when you think about it, like they were really prepared. They had Marlon Humphrey, Marcus Peters. I forget about Kyle Fuller all the time because we lost him in week 1. But they had him too. Brandon Stevens was making that transition. So they had some guys, and they drafted Pepe Williams and Jalen Armour-Davis too. So they were really prepared, but everything just started falling apart, injury-wise and whatnot. So I feel like with Marcus Peters, like you were talking about, if they do re-sign Marcus Peters, they could still draft a corner. That could alleviate pressure off of that corner that they drafted. And, of course, you still got Pepe and Jalen as well. But it could but even though nowadays, like first-round early corners, a lot of them are going in right away. But you don't necessarily have to put them in right away if you still have Marcus Peters. But then at the same time, you don't have to have Marcus Peters out there if you got that first round corner out there either. But as far as him as safety, man, I feel like minus the tackling, I feel like he would be such an amazing safety because he sees the field so well. He's able to read stuff, diagnose stuff, and whatnot. But the only thing that would scare me would be the tackling. Other than that, I think he would be a great safety if he ever decided to make that transition.
Not mad at you.
Make sure all the corners are great tacklers. If someone gets by you, they're gone. There is no help tackling. It's only for coverage. Like, that's why we got Roquan. Like, he's making those tackles.